What's up, guys? It's Friday, July 17th. Let's talk PlayStation. I want to start off this week's episode with not PlayStation news, but more importantly, video game industry news as a whole. So it was announced this past week that President and CEO of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, has passed away. Due to medical issues. He's apparently been having these medical issues for a very long time, and they just finally kind of caught up with him. These things typically happen, and he's, if you don't know, he's played a very big role in the games industry. He joined Nintendo back in the 1980s for Nintendo's HAL Laboratory. He worked on very early games for Nintendo, like Earthbound. I believe in 2002 is when he was appointed actual president, fourth president, I believe. That's when he was succeeding Hiroshi Yamauchi. I really hope I got that right. And that's where he, kind of led the company through some of the, best times the company has seen, with pioneering like the DS, Wii, moving on to 3DS, being with the company during the struggles of the Wii U, and, the GameCube didn't do that great either. So he's been there for a very long time, and he was just a very passionate person. And, the one thing I love seeing about stuff like this is, this is the kind of person that was deeply, deeply in love with what he did and was truly passionate about his craft and was excited to wake up every day and not only be involved in the games industry, but just play games himself. I think that's what's most important if you're going to work in the games industry, is to not only know how to, make money in the games industry, but more importantly, you have to be a gamer yourself. You have to enjoy games and know what people want out of games and everything. So rest in peace to Mr. Iwata. You will be missed. Now we move on to the PlayStation news. PlayStation Now has officially kicked off open beta in the UK, so if you live in the UK, you can finally try this service out for yourself. 176 titles are going to be available, about £3 to £8 per title, depending on the rental, depending on how many days you want to do. Same kind of deal with where it is here. You can rent it for like 2 days, you can rent it up to 30 days. So if you are in the UK and you actually want to try PlayStation Now, you now have the opportunity to do so. So we're kind of light on PlayStation news, but we'll talk about some pretty funny stuff. So Hateful Boyfriend is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita July 21st, and it's a game about dating pigeons, which is really cool because you get to date pigeons, and apparently it's actually very good, and it has good writing, and like it's very it's apparently a good game. So I don't know, I might have to look into this. I was at Walmart the other day and I saw a pigeon walking on the ground, and I was like, man, that's a good looking pigeon. That is pretty fucking absurd. But anyway, Goat Simulator is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 August 11th. So previously that game, of course, PC, then ported to Xbox 360, Xbox One. Now PlayStation players will get to do some crazy goat stuff. So that's good news. So this is just kind of one of those what the hell, why not news stories. Some dude on eBay is selling 15 20th Anniversary Edition PlayStation 4s on eBay for a whopping 40 million, not 40 million, my god, that would be a little bit too much, 40,000 Australian dollars. So if you got $40,000 and you want those 20th Anniversary Edition PlayStation 4s, there you go, there's that auction. Apparently he's selling them, just all 15 of them, but he's got 15 of the damn things, and he's not budging in the price apparently, but I guess the guy's having financial troubles, so he bought them hoping to hold on to them for a longer amount of time, which seems like a pretty good idea, but now he's got to get rid of them now. There you go. So if you got that kind of cash, why are you even watching my videos? Can I please have some of your money? Psh, that's basically what the news story is. What the hell is a millionaire watching my videos for? Let's face it, if you can afford $40,000 for 15 PlayStation 4s, you're probably a millionaire. You've got to be. And if you're not, then you really have your priorities set with your finances. So Sony's doing this thing called Conversation with Creators, so they're talking with developers and things like that to get some new details on how certain developers operate and the things they've done with their past projects and things like that. Really interesting stuff came out of Naughty Dog. So they just revealed with Uncharted 4 that they're going to be using real-time cutscenes, which I believe was actually announced a while ago, so I'm not sure why this is completely new news, but if you did forget, they are using real-time cutscenes, and what that means is that cutscenes will transition perfectly right into gameplay. The actual character model that's being used in a cutscene is what's going to be used actually in gameplay. That's very cool. Seamless transition. It's something that Naughty Dog hasn't done with the Uncharted series before, so that's going to be really cool stuff. They also noted, if you remember that gameplay back at E3 with the Jeep, with Nathan Drake driving around in that Jeep, apparently that plays a much bigger role in the game, and that Naughty Dog is going to be going a little bit more adventurous with Uncharted. Now, typically, if you've played Uncharted, you know that Uncharted is a little linear in a sense where there's only one way to go. There's not a whole lot of exploring you can do, but they're saying that that's a little bit expanded, so you can definitely walk around a little bit more. You can apparently get in this Jeep and drive around to certain places and areas. Certainly not an open world game, but think of more in the lines of The Last of Us. If you've played The Last of Us, you know that that game is, of course, linear as well, but there's a lot of very open areas where you can definitely miss a lot of secret doors, hallways, things like that. There's all sorts of hidden items throughout The Last of Us, so I would imagine it's more in the veins of that, which makes sense since The Last of Us team moved on to Uncharted 4 development, so that kind of really adds up there. Now, one thing that Bruce Straley discussed in terms of The Last of Us, actually, which Naughty Dog has been pretty open about this, is that they consistently always thought that during the production of The Last of Us, that they thought the game actually wasn't going to do that good. They thought it was going to review poorly, they thought it was going to borderline ruin the good name of Naughty Dog, and apparently during the development of The Last of Us, they constantly thought to themselves, like, this is going to be Naughty Dog's downfall, this is what's going to ruin our image, and things like that. And I find that really surprising that throughout the entire development of that game, that they really thought they legitimately had a game that wasn't going to be perceived well. I still find it hard to believe that they that they didn't think like, hey, people might like this. Like, they legitimately thought this is not going to do well for us. Which is surprising, because if they legitimately did think that way, it's, you're still moving on with the project. It's a multi-million-dollar game. I like that, though. I like that they're that committed to an idea. They're that committed to the story they're trying to tell or whatever, and they're not gonna, back down, at least. So the last thing I want to talk about is a topic we've been touching on a lot recently, but Shuhei Yoshida once again touched on this topic in regards to backwards compatibility and, Microsoft's recent announcement of backwards compatibility on Xbox One back at E3. But he's adding more element to what I've been telling you guys, which is he was very surprised when he actually heard about that. In fact, he was quoted as saying, I was very surprised. It must have taken lots of effort for them to realize the backwards compatibility, because the Xbox 360 and Xbox One use very different kinds of architecture. And I'm very curious. They showed a very short list of titles that work, and doing software emulation means you have to work title by title. So I'm curious to see what kind of games will be included in those 100 games that they say will be compatible by the end of the year. And then he goes on to say, with PlayStation 4, we have, PlayStation Now, and we're remastering games and all that. So he's giving the kind of typical Defendy answer, which is, we're doing a different thing, we're doing our services, we're doing remasters, which of course is not what people want to hear, but this is what I've been saying over and over and over again about this topic in backwards compatibility. When Microsoft announced that at E3, that was a mind-blowing thing, not because, like, they finally gave gamers what they wanted, but yeah, that's a good thing, obviously, but it's what they actually had to do to pull that off. They're doing emulation, and they're really, like, doing it title by title. Like, that's a huge investment, and I am still so impressed that they actually decided to go and do that, and that's not something Sony's going to do under, like, no circumstances. Sony is surprised that Microsoft did it, not because it's a consumer-friendly thing, because it's actually a very tough, difficult thing to do. That's what I'm getting at here. That's why Sony's not going to do it. That's why I told you even Microsoft wasn't going to do it how many videos ago on a Ryan on Gaming topic. Now, of course, the big thing here is that even if people are understanding that what Microsoft had to do wasn't necessarily easy, they're still saying, well, if Microsoft did it, why can't Sony? And this again goes back to the whole, like, oh, Sony wants to sell you their games over again, Sony wants you to use PlayStation Now and all this bullshit. And it seems like people always want to pinpoint it to one particular thing, like, no, it's not the remasters, it's PlayStation Now. No, it's not PlayStation Now, it's the remasters. It's like, it's a three-point system. It's a grand total thing. One, yes, of course they want to use PlayStation Now. They spent $380 million buying Gaikai. And they're still adding titles to that service. They're still expanding it to other devices, to smart TVs, to Vita, to PS3. They're doing all this stuff. That's a work in progress currently. Yes, of course they would love to sell you these remasters. Why wouldn't they want to sell you those games? That's kind of an obvious thing, but that's not the main thing. And then you've got the fact that it is difficult to do backwards compatibility, especially with PlayStation 4, because the previous system was PlayStation 3 and cell processor, a very difficult architecture. So it's not just one point, it's all those things combined that is kind of a big red flag for Sony, where it's like, why would we invest all this money trying to do software emulation when we are more than likely not going to see a return on it? So that's just, it's just not going to happen. I mean, the thing is, clearly it won't happen for PS3 games. I would love to see them do it for PS1 or PS2 games. I think that's a lot more feasible. But then again, I am not in Sony's business. I am not a Sony employee, so I don't know, I don't know how much manpower they have, how much money they want to invest into something like that. I don't know, I don't know these things. I would love for them to see them do that, but I just don't see it happening. those are just some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys this week. So if you didn't see Monday's past video, I got this cool controller, this cool custom controller from my friend, so I did a video on that. You can see that right there. Go check that video out. It's really cool. It's a chrome DualShock 4. You can probably see it right behind me, actually, right there on my PS4. Really cool little showpiece. I like to just have it there at that point. I'm not really playing with it, but really cool. Really cool stuff. And then Ryan on gaming topic this past week was internet comments. How do they affect the games industry? How do they affect the perception that people have on games? Does it make a game seem bad? Do internet comments ruin a game's reputation? Things like that. So if you want to see that discussion, go ahead and click that video. This coming Monday, Jak 2 Part 1 finally going up. So be excited for that because it's pretty awesome. Because guess what? Jak and Daxter's in it. And guess what? I'm in it. I know, pretty shocking, right? But two of those things together, me and Jak, side to side, hanging out. Jak's supposed to be right here. It's a good time, man. It's a good time. And that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. So I'm Ryan Badecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I'll see you guys all next Friday.